Now today we are beginning the chapter number 8. Chapter number 8, that is gravitation. Okay. So today is the day when we are beginning chapter 8, that is gravitation. Okay. And the first topic is just to introduce the chapter. Describe the model and theory of planetary motions presented in earliest of time. The earliest recorded model for planetary motion proposed by Ptolemy about 2000 years ago was a geocentric model in which all celestial objects, stars, sun, okay, they were all considered to be revolving around the earth. More elegant model in which the sun was the center around which the planets revolve, that is a heliocentric model. Okay, it was mentioned by Indian Rishi and scientist Sri Aryabhatta in his theories. Okay, 1,000 years later, Nicholas Copernicus proposed a model in which the planets move in circles around the fixed center, the sun. His theory was described by the church, or rather discredited, rather they were not adopted by the church but notable by Galileo. After Galileo, Tycho Brahe recorded observations of the planets with the naked eye. His compiled data were analyzed by Johannes Kepler, and he gave 3 laws for planetary motion. These laws were known to Newton and enabled him to make a great scientific leap in proposing his universal law of gravitation. So this is only for the information and introduction part. Okay. Now we talk about the Kepler's first law. This first law is having all the planet. It gives the idea about the orbit of the planet. All the planets move in the elliptical orbits with the sun situated at one of the foci. Now try to understand, as ellipse has this kind of shape, and there are 2 axes. This is called the major axis because the length is bigger than this axis. Perpendicular to the major axis is a minor axis. Now there are 2 foci. One focus is here, the other focus is here. And if you have any planet, okay, then that planet is moving in this elliptical orbit by keeping the sun at one of the foci. So either the sun will be somewhere here or it will be on the next foci. Okay, it will not be exactly here at the intersection of 2 axes. It will be, sun will be on one of the foci. Okay, here this distance is taken as 2a, that is the length of major axis. This is 2a, and this length of minor axis is taken to be 2b. Okay, an ellipse traced out by a planet around the sun. The closest point is P and the farthest point is A. You can see from this that if you consider the sun on this focus, then the closest point is P and the farthest point is A. P is called the perihelion and A is called the aphelion. The semi-major axis is half the distance, that is AP. Semi-major axis, if you want to take, major axis is 2a. Try to understand, P to A is 2a. Now if you want to take semi-major axis, then half of this axis, then this much will be A. Okay, this law was a deviation from the Copernican model, which allowed only circular orbit. Okay, Copernicus taken only circular orbit. He proposed that the planets are moving in the elliptical orbit. Now the second law of Kepler that shows that the line joining, rather the line that join any planet to the sun sweeps equal area in equal interval of time. That is aerial velocity. Aerial velocity is constant, we can say. Now try to understand this. Okay, say for example you have the ellipse. This is the elliptical orbit, okay, and this is the major axis. Here on this focus the sun is, and say planet is here. Now in line joining the sun to the planet, say for example in delta t time interval, say in 1 day or 2 days, okay, delta t is 1 day, we can say small time in 365 days, we can say take half day also. So in 1 day if this planet goes here, so this much area is swept, or we can say the area swept by the line joining the planet to the sun in say 1 day is this much, that is shaded region I have shown. Now when this planet comes here, then it goes this much, say for example, and that area, this area will be same as the area here which is swept by the line joining the planet to the sun. So area swept by the line joining the planet to the sun in same time interval will be same, or we can say aerial velocity is constant. Okay, you can understand this way also, because this is a large distance. So if it goes in 1 day this much, so angle subtended will be less. Here the angle subtended will be more, and then this area will be equal to the area which is swept when the planet is at the farther point, or it is far away. Okay, so aerial velocity is constant, we can say. This way also we can remember. Okay, now Kepler's third law of period for the planetary motion. Okay, here in the third law it is given that square of time period. Square of time period. Now what is time period? Time taken to complete one complete rotation on its axis, on one complete revolution on the elliptical path. Okay, so if the planet starts from here, if you take the observation from this point, then the time taken to complete one revolution on its path, okay, going on this path and coming back to the same point, that time interval is called the periodic time. And he found that square of time period of revolution of the planet is proportional to the cube of the semi-major axis. Now try to understand, the length of this axis is 2a and the length of semi-major axis is a. So square of time period is directly proportional to the cube of the semi-major axis of the ellipse traced out by the planet. Okay, so t cube is proportional to a cube, or t square upon a cube will be some constant. Okay, and the unit will be year square per meter cube. Okay, this constant will have the unit year square per meter cube, and it is found to be almost constant for the different planets. This is only for the information, okay, just for the information, but you can see its value is almost constant. Okay, now we move further to the very important and the first topic of this chapter, and that is Newton's universal law of gravitation, and you must have studied this in your 9th standard also. Say for example, you have two bodies whose masses are m1 and m2. Okay, now according to Newton, every body in the universe attract, very important, attract every other body with a force which is directly proportional. So force is directly proportional to the product of the masses of these body, and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between these two bodies. Okay. So now if you take, say, two bodies are there whose masses are m1 and m2, and the distance between these bodies is r. Okay. So according to this law, force is directly proportional to the product of the masses. So F is proportional to m1, m2, and this F is then inversely proportional to the square of the distance. So if you combine these two facts, then you will get F proportional to m1 m2 upon r square, m1 m2 upon r square, or F is directly proportional to the product of the masses m1 m2 and inversely proportional to the square of the distance. So one constant is kept here. If you remove the proportionality, which is called the universal gravitational constant or universal constant of gravitation, and its value is 6.67 into 10 to the power minus 11. And if you make g as a subject of formula, then you can get easily the unit of this g, Fr square upon m1 m2. Force is measured in Newton. R is the distance, square of distance will give you meter square, upon kg into kg will give you kg square. Okay, so you will have the unit Newton meter square per kg square. Okay, and the direction of this force, now direction of this force will be along the line joining the centers of these two objects which are under consideration. Try to understand. M1 will experience the attractive force towards M2. If you talk about M1, then the direction of the force will be towards M2. And if you talk about the force on M2, then that will be attractive force will be towards M1, and the direction of this force, that is attractive force, will be towards M1. So M2 is experiencing the force towards M1, and M1 is experiencing the force towards M2. Okay. Now we talk about the vector form of this Newton's law of gravitation. We take the law as it is. Law will not change. Okay. Every body in the universe attracts every other body with a force which is directly proportional to the product of their masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. So when you write this in a mathematical form, then this equation which you are writing is giving you the magnitude, okay, where r is the distance between the two bodies and g is the value of gravitational constant, and m1 m2 are the masses of these two objects under consideration. Okay. Now we take its vector form. Say for example, there are two objects of mass m1 and m2. Position vector of m1 is r1 and position vector of m2 is r2. Now, according to our vector subtraction rule, okay, vector subtraction rule, here the vector which is shown towards the second mass, that is R12. Try to understand. R12 will be, if your arrow is towards second vector, then this becomes R2 minus R1. So R12 is nothing but R2 minus R1. Try to understand. So when you want to find the attractive force on M1, which is towards M2, because it is an attractive force, so naturally the force will be towards second object. You are showing it by unit vector of R12 with the magnitude. So simple. You just have to show the unit vector R12 hat. That is nothing but vector r12 upon the magnitude, that is say distance r between these two objects. So vector upon magnitude will give you the unit vector. Try to understand this part. This must be known to you. Vector upon its magnitude will give you unit vector. So when you multiply the magnitude of the force which is acting on M1 by the unit vector R12 hat, R12 hat થી મલ્ટીપ્લાય કરીએ, that gives you the direction of the force. Okay, that is explained here. There are two objects. Okay, whichever I have explained, it is written here. Okay, two objects M1 and M2 are there. Okay, their position vectors are R1 and R2 with respect to the origin. Okay, here R12, which I have written R2 minus R1, it is shown here. Okay, it is R2 minus R1, and unit vector of R12 is vector R12 upon magnitude of R12, which is nothing but the length of the vector, and it is, that is the distance between the two objects, that is R. So R2 minus R1 upon R it becomes. Okay, R12 is taken as R. So if you want to just write force on 1 by 2, then magnitude you just have to write the magnitude Gm1 m2 upon r square, and then you multiply by this unit vector r12, that r12 hat, that gives you the direction of force on object 1 by 2, and force on 1 by 2 is towards second object because it is attracted by the second object. And similarly, force on 2 by 1, just we have to write instead of r12, we have to place r21, which is opposite vector of r12, which is, try to understand, r12 cap is equal to minus r21 hat, because r12 and r21 both are opposite to each other. If you are talking about the force on 2 by 1, then naturally the force on 2 by 1 will be towards the first object, and that will give you the direction opposite to the earlier one. So r12 hat is opposite to r21, that is minus r21. So if you want to replace this r21 by r12, then this minus sign you have to place, it becomes minus r12, or we can say force on 1 by 2, force on 1 by 2 is equal to force on 2 by 1. Force on 1 by 2 is represented by F12, and force on 2 by 1 is represented by F21, and the directions are opposite, therefore we place minus sign. Magnitudes are same, but F12 is equal to minus F21. Try to understand. F12 is equal to minus F21. The magnitudes are same, but the directions are opposite. Okay, that is explained here. F12 is equal to minus F21, and their magnitudes are same. Here these forces are shown by the arrows. Okay, force on 1 by 2 is in this direction, and force on 2 by 1 is in this direction. Okay, force on 1 by 2 is if you want to find, then you are multiplying by r12 hat, and force on 2 by 1 if you want to find, then you are multiplying by r21 hat. Okay, and r12 and r21 are opposite to each other, and therefore the force on 1 by 2 is equal to minus force on 2 by 1. Okay, try to understand this fact. 2-3 times watch this video and write these laws and every information which we have discussed in your notebook. Okay, thank you very much.